The physical special split introduced in Generation 4 is one of my favorite mechanics, opening up a lot of new avenues for Pokemon and moves alike. While it did create a healthy balance in the franchise going forward, when playing through some of the older games, there's a clear divide between the good Pokemon and everybody else. What is up, ghouls, gamers, and goblins? I'm the Potato Bagel, and I'm making a ROM hack of Pokemon Crystal. Part of this hack includes the introduction, or I guess reintroduction, of the physical special split, and this video is going to be a bit of a retrospective analysis talking about how this mechanic will affect some Pokemon and what can be done in addition to balance it out. To be completely honest, the physical special split doesn't really make or break a whole lot of Pokemon in Pokemon Crystal. A good baseline can be found just by looking at the Johto remakes, Heart Gold and Soul Silver. I mean, Feraligatr now gets a physical Waterfall, Crunch, and Ice Punch. Flareon's best move is going to be Flame Wheel. And Sneasel, despite having good physical moves, is still going to kind of suck. The biggest nerf comes to Gengar and Alakazam, who can't make use of the early elemental punches anymore, which is fine. There's no multiplayer aspect to this, and they're perfectly capable of still sweeping through the main game by themselves. The biggest downside of implementing this into an earlier game is that not every Pokemon is going to get a good enough move. I mean, look at the Dark type. In Gen 2, all the Dark type moves were considered special, but later down the line they end up becoming physical. Some of the Fire types can't even learn Fire Punch, so their best move is going to end up being Flame Wheel. And Magnemite gets zero Steel moves. So clearly something's going to need to be done here. So I took it upon myself to map out every single offensive move in Gen 2, separating them by type, and then tiering them based on progression. For example, water Pokemon start with either Water Gun or Bubble, eventually becoming Bubble Beam, then Surf through HM before wanting to learn Hydro Pump at the later levels. While I'm at it, I wanted to point out that I am using the Pokemon Crystal disassembly to create this ROM hack, so there is a limit to what I can include. So let's jump into it. Normal was the first type I needed to map out. A lot of the Pokemon learn normal type moves, so I needed to make sure that there was enough for every type of physiology out there. Most of the moves are physical, with Swift, Tri-Attack, and Hyper Beam being the only special moves. I could have easily added Echo Voice as an earlier move, but with Noctowl, Porygon 2, and Girafarig being the only notable special attacking normal types, two of which are carried by their secondary typing, the Swift TM and Union Cave is just fine. So again, all the normal type moves are mapped out, but nothing new was added. Fire, on the other hand, was really easy to map out. The Cyndaquil line level up moves end up being the base for the system, starting with Ember, then Flame Wheel, Flamethrower, and finally Fire Blast. A lot of the physical fire type attackers like Arcanine and Flareon can't learn Fire Punch, so the first new move to be added was Flare Blitz. Water, on the other hand, was a bit more tricky, as I needed to keep in mind the water types that have hands, like Feraligatr and Poliwrath, and the ones that don't, like Gyarados and Seaking. With Waterfall being the only physical move in Generation 2, which is not only locked behind an HM as well, none of these Pokemon have any good moves to level up. So I added two new moves, Aqua Break and Wave Crash. Aqua Break is the Japanese name for liquidation and functions exactly the same, except I just brought it down to a 65 base power to be on par with Bubble Beam, making it a perfect move for Croconaw. I decided on Wave Crash over Aqua Tail, as Wave Crash is naturally on par with Fire Blast and can function the exact same as Flare Blitz, and could easily be learned by both the fish and non-fish, as well as be easily animated by reusing the one for Surf. Grass types have a lot of good special moves already, with Petal Dance and Giga Drain being the only ones that matter. Fine Whip and Razor Leaf make up the early and mid game, so all that mattered was a late game physical grass move. There's a surprising amount of options here between Wood Hammer, Leaf Blade, Power Whip, but I ultimately settled on Seed Bomb. You see, the only true physical attacking grass type in Generation 2 is Victory Bell, who is a perfect candidate for Leaf Blade, but none of the other grass types can learn that. Luckily, Seed Bomb is one of Victory Bell's egg moves, and can also be learned by Meganium and Venusaur. After mapping out all of the electric type moves and looking at all of the electric type Pokemon available, I realized that no new moves actually really needed to be added, as none of them are especially physical attackers, except for like maybe Electabuzz, but Electabuzz gets Thunder Punch anyway, so all the electric type moves end up being fine. Looking at all of the flying type moves, they can be separated into three categories: Wind, Beak, and Wings. Gust is the only wind move, so I added an Air Slash for the special attackers. The beak attacks include Peck and Drill Peck, which are perfect for Dodrio, Murkrow, and Fearow, but other Pokemon like Pidgeot and Crobat don't learn those kinds of moves, and only are reliant on wing attacks, so I decided to add dual Wing Beat. It's a two-hit attack, effectively being 90 base power, making it better than Wing Attack, as well as a perfect counterpart to Drill Peck. On top of that, I added Brave Bird to serve as a super high-end flying type move. Bug was actually a hard type to balance out. Bug Buzz was an absolute necessity for Yanma, Butterfree, and Venomoth, and Bug Bite was a perfect early game addition for Caterpie, Weedle, and Pineco. However, the best physical bug move in Generation 2 is Mega Horn, but that's learned by more non-bugs than actual bugs, so I decided to buff Leech Life to its Gen 7 stats, which was needed for Ariados, Parasect, and even Crobat. However, Scyther and Pinsir can't run on Fury Carded forever, so I decided to include X-Scissor as well, making sure it had a high crit rate like in Pokemon Legends Arceus. It feels weird having both Leech Life and X-Scissor as those, flamethrower equivalents for the bug types, but I need to account for what Pokemon actually learned these moves. Pin Missile and Twin Needle are kept as mid-game moves, but due to their multi-hit properties, they're more powerful than that. Although Pin Missile isn't as consistent of a move as X-Scissor, so I feel that kind of justifies X-Scissor's inclusion. Looking at all of the fighting type moves and Pokemon, it suffers the same fate as the electric types, just the complete opposite. There's a lot of physical moves with a lot of physical attackers, and because there are no special attacking fighting types, moves like Vacuum Wave and Aura Sphere aren't really needed, which is fine. With all the bug moves I just added, I think a lack of fighting moves just kind of helps, and there's already a lot of fighting type moves anyway. A lot of psychic types run on the Confusion, Psybeam, Psychic trend like Abra and Natu, which works well since a lot of them are special attackers. But for the ones that can be run physically, as well as some of the non-psychic psychic Pokemon, Zen Headbutt was a really good addition. I think this move actually fits naturally within Gen 2 anyway, so I think it's a perfect inclusion. Despite originally being a physical type, after the inclusion of the physical special split, almost all of the poison moves, with the exception of Poison Sting, ended up becoming special. A lot of the poison types are able to get by with Sludge through the mid game, but by the late game, you really need to have a good clear distinction between the physical and special moves. And because Sludge Bomb is the best poison move and is special, you need a good physical move as well. So because of that, I decided to include Poison Jab. It'll be a stand-in for Crobat's, cross poison, but it's also a good move for Nidoking, Qwilfish, and Muck. Looking at all of the rock moves, Ancient Power is the only special move, which is fine as Ammonite and maybe Corsola are the only special attackers, but those two end up relying on their water and ice moves anyway. In terms of physical moves, I decided to make Strength a rock type move. I know that's a heated argument, but in Generation 2, the animation is quite literally chucking a giant rock, and since Rock Throw is a rock move, Strength should also be a rock move. All the Pokemon that learn it get Rock Slide as well, so the coverage is roughly the same, plus it's a more consistent move actually being at 100% accuracy. To compete, I decided to buff Rock Slide to 85 power as well, so now there's actually two good moves between Strength and Rock Slide. Similar to the fighting types, none of the ground types are special attackers, so no new moves really needed to be added. Despite this, I put in Earth Power anyway, just because I think something like Nidoking ends up needing a ground type move by level up anyway, and Earthquake felt really powerful to include, so I went with Earth Power instead. On the complete opposite end of that, the Ghost type has 4 special attackers and a good special move, so the need for a physical move wasn't really there, but despite that, I added Shadow Claw anyway as it makes for a really good TM move. Now, Dark suffered the complete opposite of what Poison went through. It was categorized as special, yet all the moves end up being physical. Dark Pulse was an obvious addition helping out Murkrow and Houndoom, but I decided to add Snarl, making for a really good mid-game move for Houndour and Umbreon. Despite being introduced in Generation 2, the Steel type also only really had 3 moves with Metal Claw, Steel Wing, and Iron Tail, so I decided to add Flash Cannon for the Magnemite line, as well as Iron Head for Scizor and Fortress. It's a good option for Steelix too, as it now doesn't have to rely on Iron Tail for a good stab option. Ice, despite not being a good type, is actually fine in terms of all of its moves. Looking through all of the available moves that I could have added, I actually decided on Icicle Spear, as Piloswine, a physical Ice-type attacker, doesn't get any physical Ice-type moves. And I didn't think Ice Fang was a good addition, so I decided on Icicle Spear, which plenty of other Pokemon are able to learn as well. Now, with there being only two fully evolved dragon types, nothing actually really needed to be done. Outrage and Dragon Breath are both fine as late game moves, being physical and special respectively. So with some slight buffs, they're actually, pretty decent moves, and there's plenty of other Pokemon that are able to learn some of the other dragon moves as well. Now, I know I said this was going to be a retrospective, but looking back at all that, I didn't really go through it in a very retrospective manner. Well, that's because, in retrospect, the moves were pretty well balanced. Aside from the bug type, which needed like 3 new additional moves, most of the types end up being like 0 to 2 moves. Most of the issues with the original Gen 2 system was stuff like Ariados not getting Twin Needle, or Sudowoodo being the only rock type that gets Rock Slide by level up. To some extent, an argument can be made that it was to justify the use of breeding and getting egg moves onto your Pokemon, but if the only Steel type move Magneton and Fortress get is Hidden Power, then I think there's an issue with that system, which is why I implemented something like this. My intention here was to make every Pokemon viable to some extent, and I found that the physical special split was the best way to do that as it creates a consistency across the board. If I decided to just do something like switch Flareon's attack and special attack stat, without the physical special split, then Ursaring and Granbull can't benefit from the elemental punches, only having stab normal moves as a physical option. With the elemental punches and the elemental beams becoming available at the same time, it made more sense to split the moves and make good use of both sets. In addition, by mapping out the moves, I can see what already existing moves needed to be balanced as well as which moves end up needing to be removed. Keep in mind, there is a limit of 255 moves that I can work with, and in the original Pokemon Crystal, 251 already exists, so if I wanted to add all of the moves that I said I was going to, I needed to be selective with what needed to be removed. Yeah, you heard me right, I said removed. To make every Pokemon viable and consistent, I need to be efficient with the limited space provided. Luckily, it actually wasn't too bad justifying getting rid of some of these moves. There's a fair amount of moves that are either redundant, inferior, or just non-existent. So here's a quick rundown of them all. Psywave, no one ever uses Psywave, it's too inconsistent. Spiderweb, it's Ariados' signature move, but they also get Mean Look, and those status moves aren't affected by the type matchup, so just use Mean Look instead. Horn Drill, Fissure, and Guillotine are all the Oko moves. I decided to get rid of those, that's fair. Detect, which functions the exact same as Protect. You can just use Protect. Slam, just use Body Slam. I know the implications is that you slam the Pokemon versus you slamming your body on the Pokemon, but I mean, it's just use Body Slam. Let's see, Bone Meringue. Marowak doesn't need 3 signature moves, and Bone Meringue ended up being the perfect thing to turn into dual Wing Beat. Razor Wind. This is a move because it was a TM in Generation 1, and no Pokemon can learn this in Generation 2, which honestly I think is a wasted opportunity, but luckily this ended up becoming Air Slash, the animation was perfect anyway. Sky Attack. This was Moltres' signature move, only in Generation 2, where you can't catch Moltres, so I just reused the animation and have it become Brave Bird instead. Mega Punch and Mega Kick were kind of hard to justify, but because there's no Mega Spin for Hitmontop, I decided to get rid of them anyway, and there's plenty of other normal type moves that fit the bill perfectly. Nightmare. Why would you use this, ever? This is what became Shadow Claw. I just got rid of Nightmare completely. Crab Hammer. Yeah, this just became Aqua Break. Just same animation, same premise, just Crab Hammer is just inferior, just as a move in general. Only learned by Krabby and Kingler, that's not efficient. Clamp. This was a physical Whirlpool learned by Shellder and Cloyster. So Shellder and Cloyster now just learn Whirlpool instead. It's easy. Egg Bomb. I just turned this into Seed Bomb. Super easy. Skull Bash. Now this, I'm nothing against Skull Bash, but it's only learned by Squirtle and Bulbasaur through an egg move, and it's just not ideal, so I got rid of it anyway. Explosion. Between Explosion and Self-Destruct, we didn't need 2 of those kinds of moves, so I got rid of Explosion and kept Self-Destruct. Sharpen. This was learned by Porygon to raise its physical attack, which is now inferior and redundant because it gets Stab Special Tri-Attack. so I just decided to get rid of it. Zap Cannon. No one used Zap Cannon ever. I know Lock On and Zap Cannon was a popular like level up, move, especially for something like Magneton, but it just got replaced with Lock On and Thunder, so you didn't need to rely on the rain for that. Psych Up and Pound are the last two moves that I got rid of. And who uses Psych Up? Really? Copy your stat changes? Just use your own stat changes. It's fine. And as for Pound, I replaced every instance of Pound with Tackle, as they are functionally the same, and it's just that little bit of flavor that didn't really need to exist. So that was a lot of moves I just got rid of. And there are actually some issues getting rid of some of them. Sky Attack, Razor Wind, and Skull Bash are 2-turn moves with the first turn of charging up. And when getting rid of some of these moves, I came across issues, mostly when you would use something like Dig or Fly, which have that same, function. So I'm not the best at coding, and I'm sure there was a fix for this, but I ended up scrapping that charging up portion. So yeah, the only real drawback was that I actually had to get rid of Solar Beam. Not ideal, but Fly and Dig became 1-turn moves, meaning there's no longer that state of invulnerability on the first turn. And because I had to get rid of Solar Beam, which I didn't want to have to get rid of, I thought that was a really, good move, especially to, pair with the Sun. But since I had to get rid of it because I didn't know how to fix this issue, I ended up replacing it with Leaf Storm. So, there's still a very good special Grass type move that the Grass types get at high levels. Now, again, getting rid of Solar Beam wasn't ideal, and, it was really good to run in the Sun, especially for designing Erica as a trainer. But at the same time, I feel like not a lot of the players would use a Sun team. So, but it's just, it had to be done. I'm sorry, it's just an issue that I could not fix. Anyways, I think that wraps it up for this video. Thanks for watching. There'll definitely be more videos talking about this ROM hack. There's plenty of changes that I introduced, so stay tuned for that. Until then, stay frothy.